we've got a very exciting announcement to make, and that is that we have come up with a name. And
we have a name.
We're not the first episode Let's Talk anymore.
Okay, so backstory. This is relevant. Backstory. Last episode, you have to have a title on Spotify, on Anchor,
to publish,
iHeartRadio, wherever you publish your podcast. You have to have a title for both the podcast series and the episode. But as I told you, and as we told everybody listening, we didn't come up with like a big, drawn out, detailed, step-by-step vision. It was just, let's just do it. Let's not let the details get in the way, because that's just going to slow us down and stop us from doing what we want to do, which is just create some fun stuff and have some fun. So we took that first episode and we got some great feedback, some great fanfare, and we just want to say thank you to anybody that listened, and we're excited for you to join the journey.
Yeah, we definitely took all of the responses and the thoughts into consideration, and we threw those all in the trash and came up with our own ideas about how we're going to do this going forward. But we do appreciate everybody that listened to just two guys talking about movies, something that we're passionate about, and we have a lot of fun with, and we think that we can bring a lot of entertainment to you guys.
Yes,
way.
Truly, from the bottom of our heart, all 6 of you that listen to this.
Yes.
We really appreciate you.
Our 6, my mom listened 4 times, I know, and then I listened 2, so.
And what emerged from that, and it sounds silly because we've talked about it so much, this whole time we've been talking about what's the literary vehicle that we can use to showcase this podcast or this channel. Should we do it on YouTube? Should we do it here or there? Where should it be? And we said it the moment we started. We said, we've been talking about movies in Brett's minivan.
It just came organically. The literary vehicle was the literal
vehicle. And so I think that's why we're super pumped to announce that our podcast is no longer a no-named podcast. We have a name.
Yeah, we have a name.
And that name is the Minivan Movie Club. In today's culture, we are constantly inundated with the negative, and we're forced to talk about the things that we hate. So let's flip the script, and let's talk about the things that we love. We love TV and film. So join 2 dudes as we break down our favorite movies and how they relate to life. Welcome to the Minivan Movie Club. Let's go! Welcome back to the van. I'm your driver, Brett Gray, and to my right, in the front seat, riding shoddy, is the bearded wonder, Nick Whigham.
Hello. What's up, everybody?
Together, we are your favorite backseat drivers, backseat directors, and today we're going to be talking about the latest Netflix release.
We have a ghost.
For now, let's talk about the streaming world. We've all been there before. You're sitting at home.
We hate it.
Your wife grabs the remote and says, "Hey, what do you want to watch?" And you're like, "I don't care, whatever."
We got a couple hours while the kids are taking a nap, and you spend the whole time searching through the movie list.
You want to watch this?
On all of your streaming services.
Nah. You want to watch this? Nah, I'm not in the mood for that. What about something like lighthearted? And then you're down the rabbit hole 2.5 hours later. The kids are awake. Yeah. It's 1 a.m. or whatever. Whatever the case is, you've evaporated this time. It's like, let's just watch like Parks and Rec or Friends or The Office. Like, why do we try to do anything?
Yeah, and it turns you off from searching for another month or 2, and then you do it all over again. And unless there's just something that just came out that one of you saw the trailer for, you think that both of you would really like. We've all been there. We've all searched countless hours.
In our household, I'm very type A when it comes to like my Netflix queue, my Pandora lists, my Spotify likes. Like, I religiously make sure that those things are, filed like a perfect
in order.
They're in order and like they're up to date. So when Jessica says to me, "Hey, I want to watch this movie," I'm like, "Oh, all right, let me take a note, put it in the queue." So that when we're looking, I don't have to look through everything. I have to look through like 5 movies. Like, all right, here's your 5 options. Which ones you want to watch? And every time, without fail, I'm like, "Hey, remember when you said you wanted to watch Grease or you wanted to watch Moulin Rouge?" She's like, "Yeah, I'm not in the mood for that anymore." I'm like, "God!"
You're like, "What?"
I tried so hard. But in the end, it doesn't even matter.
Yes, we've all struggled with that, switching to the moods, and it happens to both the guys too. You say that you want to watch a movie, and you're like, oh, this is on my list, and then you come time to press play, and you're like, eh.
So let's talk a little bit about, real quick, rapid fire. A couple of quick suggestions to somebody who's maybe looking at Netflix. They're going to watch Netflix tonight after they listen to this episode. What are 2 or 3 movies or shows they should check out?
So if you're going to watch something, specifically if you're going to watch it with your significant other or by yourself, if you just like a rom-com,
Lonely.
yes, Your Place or Mine, Ashton Kutcher, and Reese Witherspoon, starring a little rom-com. It's not serious, it's not deep, but it has its good laughable moments. It's very easy to watch, and you don't have to spend like 2.5 hours. It's not an Oscar worthy type movie. It's just a easy streaming option if you need something to spend time with your.
Yeah, we watched Your Place or Mine. We enjoyed it. Easy little rom-com flick. Easy one to like talk to your partner as you're dealing with the movie. One of the movies I like on Netflix, it's an oldie but a goodie. I say oldie, it's not new. Oblivion, starring Tom Cruise.
Great movie.
Kind of set in a futuristic world scenario. Super fun watch. One fun fact about this movie, I bought this movie on Blu-ray when I first got married because one of my groomsmen gave me a 4K television.
Oh, wow.
For a wedding gift. And at the time, this was like cutting edge technology. This is 8 years ago. When like 4K was just like, whoa, there was no UHD, there was no OLED, LED televisions. It was like, wow, this is amazing. And so I bought this on Blu-ray, and I watched it just because of some of the scenery. It's shot in Greenland and Iceland, and it's just like a really aesthetically beautiful movie.
Back when they filmed movies in location. Yes.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Zing.
Swing. And it's just a good movie. I just really like it. It's got really great visuals. So with Netflix being UHD, it's a great movie to watch on a projector, on a big screen, in a dark room. And then another movie I would totally want people to check out, I just watched it recently, is White Noise. Relevant right now because of all the train crashes going on, the derailroading or the deroading of these trains. This actually is a train crash that happened recently in like this actual town. So this movie was released a year ago. It's got Adam Driver and Don Cheadle in it.
Is it based on a true story, the movie?
No, it's just like a hypothetical scenario,
That
but then like it
hypothetical
actually
came true.
happened. So maybe it was written by Dan Groening and the Simpsons. They wrote. I don't know.
It, yes.
But it's good. Check it. It's an easy little watch. Adam Driver's in it. Don Cheadle. I love Don Cheadle. He's very underrated. He's kind of goofy in this movie, but it's a really good film.
And if you want a good historical, with some slight fiction, The Founder on Netflix is really good. All of us love a good Happy Meal, a good Big Mac, and it's about the origin of McDonald's and how that all got started. It's got top 2 Batman in there, Michael Keaton as the founder, and it tells you the story of how he acquired the brand, and he's really kind of the one that took it off to the level that we all know with McDonald's on every corner in every town in America. So if you're looking for something that has some truth to it, but probably pretty fictionalized, but still some nuggets of truth, The Founder's a really good watch.
So that's 4 quick streaming recommendations for you. Oblivion, White Noise, The Founder, and Your Place or Mine. If you've got a recommendation that you particularly are fond of that's available on Netflix or one of the other streaming platforms, let us know in, kind of through a message, the comments below, whatever it is that you love watching. We'd love to make this more of a community. So those are 4 recommendations. The 5th recommendation is the movie that we're going to talk about tonight. The movie we're going to talk about today, which is We Have a Ghost. We Have a Ghost is the latest Netflix supernatural adventure comedy, written and directed by Christopher Landon. It centers on Kevin, played by actor Jahai Winston, and his father Frank, played by actor Anthony Mackie, when their family buys a new house and they find a ghost named Ernest living in their attic. The ghost, played by actor David Harbour, has a murky past that is haunting this house, and it turns Kevin and his entire family into social media sensations, quite literally overnight. But when Kevin and Ernest go rogue to investigate the murky past that surrounds Ernest, they become the center of this CIA investigation, and hijinks and cinematic chaos ensues. I will say this. At the very beginning of the movie, the first shot, what do you see? A minivan.
A minivan.
It's a minivan. So I was like, this is going to be a good movie.
World.
Any movie that starts off with a minivan, and this isn't like an old creeper white van. This is a Dodge Grand Caravan, probably early aughts, late 90s. That's a classy ride.
Yeah, you want to put your kids in that one.
That's a good ride.
It'll keep them safe.
And it kept them safe. This family runs out the house, they hop in their minivan, and they go.
Yeah, they do a good job of the initial jump. They establish it's a creepy house. There's no confusion about what theme they're kind of going for with this one. It starts with the usual trope of a family is touring the creepy house with the realtor, and she's trying not to expose too much information about why the house is such a good bargain, which obviously to the viewer, we all know why they're getting that house for super cheap, and that's because somebody died in there. So, spoiler alert, by the way, me and Brett, we hate spoilers. This is a spoiler-filled podcast.
This is a spoiler-free zone, but minivans don't have spoilers. If you see a minivan with a spoiler, that is not, that guy is not cool.
That is not a guy you want driving your kids
I don't
around.
care if he has a unicorn or like a minotaur on the side of the van with a porthole window. If it's got a spoiler, it's not a cool minivan anymore.
If I see a spoiler on a minivan, I'm turning around. I'm not.
Stranger danger, which is kind of a bit of the opening here in this movie. That this stranger danger, we're kind of led into this very paranormal activity, very uneasy. Like what's going on? We're lurking through the shadows of the attic, and then Kevin meets the ghost.
Yes, Kevin meets the ghost, and instead of your typical reaction to a ghost encounter that I think every human would have,
he has a reaction like my wife when she sees me naked.
Yeah,
of like
she pulled out her phone and starts recording and laughing at you. So
no, just that he says, "Look, this isn't gonna work for me."
Yeah,
like I'm not.
Like this is not what you think it is. Ernest is trying his best to be a good ghost, keep his house empty, and he's trying to scare this kid who's clearly not frightened. I think they were going for a little bit of a different reaction than what we would have all expected. I don't know if it lands perfectly.
See, I think it's quite funny for Ernest trying to scare Kevin, and Kevin just like, look.
So I think
the chuckle is funny.
I think if it had scared him like a little bit the first time, and then he like realizes that it's not actually scary, then it would have been a little better. But just from the jump, and I get it. Like Ernest isn't inherently scary; he's just a big ghost because he doesn't come at him with like Beetlejuice face or something where they've got like distended.
So this is where we meet Ernest. Ernest, obviously played by the wonderful David Harbour, probably most famously known for his role as Sheriff Hopper in Stranger Things. But David Harbour really establishes himself very quickly as a physical actor in this movie because
very slapstick. Yep.
Very quickly we learn through this first interaction, through Kevin and Ernest talking, that Ernest, the ghost,
can't talk.
He's
talk. Mute.
He'd be a great co-host on a podcast.
Like,
just let me talk the whole time.
I think that was. I think personally, that's a misuse of Ernest.
What did you think of the choice? What did you think of the choice for Ernest to not speak?
I think that was a poor choice because David, as an actor, has a lot of charm in his delivery. He can be a physical actor, and he really leans on that in this movie. But I think generally, his dialogue and how he delivers that is part of what really makes his characters more endearing. And I think he could have spoken in this movie and that would have been just fine. I don't think that he had to be mute for the fact that he doesn't remember how he got to be where he is. Him talking wouldn't necessarily change that or make it an issue.
See, I see both points on both sides of the issue, but I actually find it very refreshing and cool that he didn't speak. One, we just haven't seen ghost movies like that. And again, this when I'm watching the movie in real time, I'm not thinking about the future of the movie or where the story's going. I'm just thinking like, oh wow, I've never seen a ghost that can't talk. I've seen lots of Scooby-Doo as a kid. I've seen all kinds of horror movies and scary movies where ghosts are involved, and they all have the same kind of agenda, same type of flow. And so this was new, so it was immediately refreshing. So it made me kind of endear myself to Ernest, and so I liked that. And I think some of the best moments in this whole movie are Ernest, just doing Ernest stuff. And I think David Harbour as an actor really delivered. And I was forced to pay attention so much more to what he was doing because he wasn't talking.
Yeah, he wasn't giving you dialogue.
There was no
to feed
words,
off
so
of.
the facial expressions, the tics, everything meant much more. And I liked that personally.
Yeah, he does a good job physically with the role. So the initial story, they are in this attic. He records him.
Kevin records him with his cell phone.
And
Takes a
so
little selfie video.
Kevin initially is apprehensive. That's the trait that we know. He's the kind of the angsty teenager. They established from the jump that him and his dad have a strained relationship. And Kevin didn't necessarily want to move. They've moved to Chicago.
Yes, Chicago.
And so you quickly learn that this is a pattern for them. They're moving. Dad's trying to establish some sort of new job to provide for the family, and the kid keeps getting uprooted. But discovering the ghost in the attic gives him a reason to enjoy the house, and it gives him a joy that he didn't necessarily feel when he was first initially told he was going to move.
See, and this is where some of the feedback that we got from last time's episode starts to play into role how we actually organize this episode, where we want to talk about themes of movies. And last time when we talked about Ant-Man, we kind of say that like nugget for like right at the end. Oh yeah, and here's a theme that was really true to me. In this movie, something I want to get off the go is there is very clearly a theme like familial relationships and the necessity of family to overcome journeys in life, overcome adventures and adversity. And this is where we are immediately primed. The moment we see Kevin's family get out of the car to check out the house, we see Anthony Mackie, who is just an excellent actor. He has this
Charm,
like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson charisma about him, where like I just love him. And I've seen him in so many action movies, thrillers, heist movies, obviously in the MCU. I've seen him in so many roles like that. So to see him be the dad, kind of the goofy, Sanford and Son type dude.
Yeah, I smiled as soon as he like enters the scene. It like kind of like lit me up a little bit. I was like, okay, this is good. They establish him. He's still got that charm, but he is also playing the dad with clearly some struggling issues. And so we move. You've got dynamics, family dynamics. You've got an older brother who's kind of the hot shot ladies' man that they've established, and you've got the mom who clearly has favored the younger son as far as with the relationship between parents and dad and mom.
And you have this really cool moment at the beginning of the film where they're all sitting together in the house and they're sitting there around boxes. Everyone's done this when you've moved and you're having pizza or whatever you're having as your first meal in the house.
Something quick.
And Frank, Anthony Mackie, the dad character, says, "I'm sorry you're so unhappy, okay? Now we're all trying to get a fresh start. I'd appreciate it if you'd come at it with a little bit more positivity." And Kevin, the protagonist of the film, says, "How many fresh starts are we at now, Dad? I lost count." So we're immediately given this seed that something else is there, and we're going to learn more about this throughout the movie. I'm immediately primed. All right, there's some strain here.
Yeah, there's some
and
tension
this scene
between dad and son.
Kind of ends. And for me, I really felt this personally because that argument in the movie stems from them talking about rock and roll. And my father is a huge classic rock enthusiast, taught himself how to play guitar as a kid. He's always wanted me to learn how to play guitar. When I was a kid, I missed out on 90s and the aughts music because I was listening to Led Zeppelin. I was listening to Black Sabbath. I was listening to Deep Purple. My favorite song of all time is Highway Star by Deep Purple, which shows up in this movie.
Oh, wow.
So there's so much music in the beginning of this movie and through the first 40% that speaks directly to me and my father. When I hear those songs, I think of my dad. So I thought about that a lot. But I don't want to foreshadow anything here, but it just felt like we were primed with so much about the family relationship, about the music, all this stuff. And then it just disappears because all of a sudden then it's like new wave music starts showing up.
Yeah.
That never pays off. The argument about Jimi Hendrix being the greatest guitarist never pays off. The argument his music and the fact that he wants to play this music. He plays, when he first meets Ernest, he plays Have You Ever Seen the Rain by CCR. That's literally the first song I ever played on a guitar.
You are Kevin?
I'm a young black teen. I'm a young black teen. The music just spoke so much to me and my family, specifically because my dad always wanted me to play guitar, and I never did until I was like 25 years old. I finally was like, I'm going to learn. And that was the first song I actually learned how to play because it's a G, C, E. It's a really simple cowboy chord song. So for me, like, I remember when my dad found out that I was playing guitar, he was like more impressed than me having children, graduating college, having a job, getting married.
Like anybody can do those things.
Yeah, well, idiot. But the fact that I did it on my own, he was so proud of me. Like, it was like beaming with pride that I learned how to play guitar. And
that was the first time he called you son.
It was. And it just, for me, like, I was so ready to have this like cathartic father-son adventure.
Yeah,
and
they
that
prime you up
isn't
for it.
what happened.
And so that the first act, I think they do a good job of kind of establishing some tones that you hope will carry you through to the end of the movie. You quickly realize that the brother and the dad, Anthony Mackie, are going to try to exploit Ernest the ghost for the modern creative purposes of being content creators. And so that's where the movie takes a funny twist from things that we've seen this type of ghost story in the past, where they're trying to then use this to become famous.
And it's a really fun ride there, that little piece there where they go viral.
Oh, yes.
And you get to see some really fun things. Like, you see actual people that you've seen when you're scrolling through your feed, through like YouTube Reels, TikTok Reels, all that. It is really fun seeing the challenges, seeing like do the Ernest
challenge,
the wall.
Yeah.
Like, it resonates, it hits well. And I thought for a second maybe we were gonna go like to a commentary place, because very quickly Anthony Mackie's character is like making merch. He is got the interviews lined up.
Wondering how many views he's getting on every video.
He's hustling. He's looking
coming
at
after
views.
PewDiePie.
Oh, when he said the PewDiePie line, I laughed out loud.
Well, it's kind of it. Well, for me watching it, I really like it. Kind of is reminiscent of me and you trying to start this thing, because I think neither one of us has the desire to be like a famous. That's not the point of any of this.
Well, I am famous. You are not.
That's true.
So
neither one of us is like. I think we're doing this because we enjoy it. It's for fun.
Yes, it's just for fun.
It's not like, oh, this is our route to get famous. So it's funny to see somebody with a drive. Like the dad does not care what the thing is. He just wants. He even says this. He just needs one thing to work out for them, and he sees Ernest as kind of that meal ticket, and it establishes him in an adversarial relationship with his son, who sees Ernest as a person that's stuck here, and he wants to help him move on to the great beyond, whatever that is in this film.
Yep. So you have some really fun moments there where I thought we were gonna have some, and there could be some really fun commentary about social media and what's going on there. They have a couple of lines like, just because you're not made of matter doesn't mean you don't matter.
Oh, yeah.
Or ghost rights are human rights, you guys. Those are really funny jokes. But they're also like, it's very relevant. Like, when you are on social media, you see things, and like, cancel culture is real. Social media culture is real, where you're kind of behind the anonymous keyboard or the anonymous camera. You can kind of do and say whatever you want, and things become trends really quickly. We're like, why is it a trend that people are running into a wall? That's probably something that you would like realistically see. So it's just really funny to see it in like a very organic and natural way.
They start out this cohesive unit where you could have this real struggle, and as you move into the second part of the movie, you're then introduced to a CIA operative who's been down on her luck. She's been essentially blackmailed from the force, or blackballed, and so she's no longer credible officer. And so she sees Ernest, she realizes that this is real, and her original mission was to find paranormal entities. Essentially, it seems like she wants to research them, but obviously the CIA's interest is to use them as some sort of weapon, which she seems to be unaware that that's their actual intention. And so
And this is where like the movie, in my opinion, starts to take a weird turn that makes the plot or the storyline. I don't want to use disjointed to describe every movie that I think is poor, but like this is just disconnected from the rest of the movie. Where this is Tig Notaro, her character, Dr. Leslie Monroe, says, "We know that every atom, every molecule of the human body is composed of energy. But what happens to that human energy field when the body dies? I believe that energy could be captured." And that line never comes back to be useful.
No.
It's just so out of left field. Like in my opinion, you just cut the CIA out of this movie and the movie's immediately better. It was over 2.5 hours long. It did not need to be.
No, it's
get rid of Tig, who has a deal with Netflix to be put into every movie right now. This is not a good outing in my opinion. I think she's funny. This role, it's not really humorous. It's
like
very
a weird, like it's like sappy serious, but also like trying to establish her as some sort of comic relief, but it just doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
And so it's an awkward placement, and you're immediately pulled away from that family tension to have now Anthony Mackie's worried about losing his golden nugget to the CIA versus the true dynamic, which should be, him worrying about the relationship with his son and losing it that way.
It's almost as if they use the government and the CIA as an adversary to Frank's character, when Frank already has an adversary in his wife, in his sons. And he has this conversation with Melanie, his wife, when she finds out about the ghost. She's like, "We have a ghost in our attic, Frank." And he's like, "I'm sorry, I should have told you." And she's talking, "Well, weren't you supposed to be more communicative? We had all these mouth breather sessions with this doctor, and you're doing all this." And I love Anthony Mackie. He has this perfect line where he says, "This is real. This is our chance. This could change everything, and I just need to win once, just once." And all of a sudden, like I had been thinking to myself, you're kind of a douche. You're kind of a jerk. Yeah. But he says that, and I'm like, yes, I feel that desperation. It reminds me of when you're watching Dumb and Dumber, and Harry and Lloyd are like, "We got no jobs. We got no food. Our pets' heads are falling off." And like, I'm sick of having nothing and having nobody to love. Like, you all automatically, you're like, yeah, these guys are idiots, but they're lovable. And so immediately in that moment, all these silly things of merch and T-shirts and news interviews and television shows, it's all like, hey, he's doing this for his family. Like, that's enough of an adversary to like try to win over his family. I don't need the government and all their freaking lasers.
Yeah, laser.
I'm not trying to go all libertarian and down with the government, because they're probably listening to this podcast. Yes. And I love the government.
They're
they are
one of our 5 listeners.
I've always loved the government. Always been a big fan of the government.
Yeah. I pay my taxes.
Yeah, always the right amount too. I love Anthony Mackie, and we don't get that. Instead, we get this kind of story where I just wanted, after he said that, for him to realize, like, all right, I'm just gonna open my mind and my heart, and we're just gonna let Kevin lead the way. And me and Kevin says in this movie is really beautiful moment where Ernest asks, like, "Why are you helping me? What are you helping me with? Why are you doing this?" He's like, "Well, you're stuck, and no one likes being stuck." And that's such a cool premise. It's so simple, like a child, to say, let's build a movie on this. This ghost is stuck. The kid doesn't want the ghost to be stuck. The dad has other ulterior motives, but learns so much more by just trusting in the childlike wisdom, this innate desire to be helpful and help other people. That'd be such a fun journey where, like, the movie goes on, they go through all these other adventures. If it would have been Anthony Mackie, or Frank and Kevin doing this together as father and son with the ghost,
you can still get that slapstick.
I get everything.
Jokes. You get everything. You get the humor. Plus, you also get some serious meat, emotional meat that kind of brings you back to this movie and says, "Hey, this is a great movie. You can watch it with your teenager, and it really can resonate for a long time." Instead, you get like a lot of stuff going on at once. In the second act, though, I think is when you do get to see David Harbour's real physical comedy shine. They have a fun car scene chase with him where he's they're taking on the police, and he is jumping in and out of cars and doing all sorts, running through offices, and it's very funny. It's done really well for the movie. It to me is one of the better sequences where you get to just lean on his physical comedy.
And from a movie making perspective, Netflix has had a problem with some of like CGI or the consistency of like how graphics show up. And for the most part, this movie does a really good job. Like when you see Ernest, the ghost, he always looks the same. Like it's consistent. It's believable. It's an interesting take on it.
Well, that's that It's a $75 million budget movie, and if I didn't tell you that, you probably wouldn't have known based off of this. Story.
What's wild is so many Netflix movies fail. Like when you start thinking about, like last week we talked about Ant-Man, a very big theatrical release production. Here we're talking about We Have a Ghost, a Netflix original, where Netflix is trying so hard to bust the red tape, bust through the scene, and get truly competitive with the theatrical releases where they can get awards, they can get prestige, and they can draw more audiences. And likewise, like Marvel, who's figured out what the popcorn movie is, they're trying to figure out shows. Like they both want to get part of the action, and being good with your production and your development of CGI, that's an area where I see Netflix starting to get a little more improvement, and that's a good thing for Netflix.
And I think that they handled that really well. The CGI, like you said, is very solid. You don't see him and you're like, oh man, that was a bad scene, like you've seen with some of the Marvel movies lately, where it's just not consistent due to the level necessary for what we're getting on screen. You get that car chase, which was a lot of fun, and then you move into
it was fun as an audience member watching like Ernest realize, oh, I can go out of the building, I can do others, and so he kind of learns.
Another big ghost reveal, because you think that he's stuck in the house like a traditional haunting movie, and
he realizes he's got to stay here.
He realized that he's not actually tied to the house. They get to take him out and have an adventure with him, and
so they have their car chase. I think that's really fun when he's flying in between the cars, and I think it's really cool that he can touch people. One of my favorite lines in the movie is when he's like, "So you can touch us, and we can't touch you." Oh, like a stripper. It's just like a fun. It just caught me so off guard. Yeah. Where like we just met a ghost, and like, oh, I can touch you, you can't touch me. Oh, like a stripper. Okay, cool.
Which is also funny that a 16-year-old knows like the rules for strip clubs.
In Chicago, you gotta know.
We won't get into that.
This movie did take place in Southside Chicago, in Chirac.
And so,
R.I.P.
So you move into then the third phase of the film, which is you meet the guy that originally owned the house, that we presume knows who Ernest is.
And fun fact, he is Ernest.
And yeah, he is Ernest. Ernest is just the name on the bowling shirt that
is actually Randy.
And
Ernest's brother-in-law.
Yeah. And so that's quite the shocker.
Obviously, these dudes are white. If you haven't seen the movie,
yes.
Ernest and Randy.
Oh,
there's some white dudes.
Don't need to get confused with the family. And so we hear a story about how Ernest was Randy was this terrible dad. He was an alcoholic, abandoned his kid. Just the worst of the worst, and he doesn't need to be saved. You just need to forget about him. Kind of the trope of
deadbeat Randy.
Yeah, this isn't the good guy that you're trying to save.
Lives in a box van down by the river.
Lives in the shanty. And of course, as we're getting like this serious moment, the CIA busts in just right when you're like,
everyone freeze!
Yeah. And there's like another little battle, and Ernest is captured, and we're moving into like the last act of the movie.
Because somehow off camera, it's important for us to know that the government was able to deploy and commercialize ghost weapons.
Yeah,
anti-ghost.
Readily, and also without knowing anything about where the sun was going, because they established that they had no idea for the whole
he
second
shows
of the
up.
movie. And so then you're now Kevin is upset that his friend has been captured. They haven't resolved the issue of why he's still here. He's back home and he's mopey. Dad's mopey because he doesn't have his $1 million ghost anymore. The wife's mopey because everybody else is mopey. it's just a mopey time.
And then you get to what I think is like a truly honest and really, I want to say beautiful because of the honesty moment between father and son, where Kevin is up in the attic, where he spends time with his ghost, Ernest. Ernest is locked away at this government offsite facility, and Frank comes up to talk to Kevin, and he says, hey, it's really quiet up here. And he starts talking about the story of, the day when you came home, it was raining just like it is now. And I was scared we weren't going to make it to the hospital. I said, if we got there, I was going to be the best dad ever. I promised myself that. And he tells his son, like, along the way, he broke his promise. Because all those things that we were told about early on in the movie, we're now in the final act of the movie. We were told he was a bad dude. He maybe had some not so good things in his past, and we didn't really see those things. We didn't witness them. We saw like one episode maybe of this, like trying to exploit this ghost for financial fame or whatever, but we didn't really see it. Regardless of that, Anthony Mackie as an actor just does a great job delivering the lines and the story. He just says, I'm like, man, when you're a little kid, it is so easy for your parent to be everything to you.
I love that line.
Then you grow up, and it's harder for me to hide the parts of me that I don't like about myself from you.
And that's the reality we're kind of facing as our kids get
Dude,
older and start to see our personalities.
Like when he said that, I felt like, whoa, because I've got a 5, going to be 6 this summer, and a 6-month. So I have all these kids that think, like my son thinks I'm strong. He says,
he does not know anything.
He goes to me, he's eating vegetables like, hey, Dad, I'm be strong like you. I'm like, hey, you going to be weak.
Pretty low.
Going to be like 4'11".
But no, you've talked about this too with your oldest starting to realize, be aware socially of how her responses affect the overall dynamic, how fair they are. And so it is true, your kids do start to notice more things. You're not the superhero they necessarily think you are when they're little, because they also start to see some of those character flaws. And it also speaks to Anthony Mackie's just like every dad in this movie, in that we want to provide for our family and our kids. The issue is that a lot of times we go about it in a way that's not necessarily put in the priorities in order. And for him, it seems like he's always trying to find the next big money thing so his family can make it, and not necessarily providing that stability, which is, I think, really what his son is craving the whole time, is just a stable environment. And his wife is also, I think, craving that too, where you have open communication, you have stability, and it provides with a safe environment for the younger son to grow and have that relationship with his dad, instead of feeling like he's always being pulled out of situations as soon as he starts to land on his feet. And the older son, he's completely oblivious to all these things. He's like swiping through Tinder. He's like, I got a new city, a new girl to go find. He didn't know the wiser.
Well, he drives an orange Charger, and apparently they're broke. They don't have any money, but they got this.
When he's driving
their dad drives a early 90s Grand Cherokee, but their son drives an orange Dodge Charger.
Yeah, I don't know if there's like this like story of like maybe the son is like because they established that he's almost in college or something. So I'm like, is he like an athlete and like some boosters got him a car? Like I don't
it's
know.
NIL money, baby.
I don't know.
That's not a family car. That's an NIL car.
So I don't know if somebody was buying that.
There's this really cool moment where Anthony Mackie says like, look, I tried to be everything for you, your mom, and your brother. And I tried to hide the parts I didn't like about myself. And I think of myself too, like what are the parts when I'm introspective and I'm really honest with myself? What are the parts that I don't want my kids to know? Right now, it's very easy to hide that from them. When they get older, like even this past week, my oldest has been asking me, hey, can we go out and play scooters? And I'm like, I have other things I got to do. We'll do it later. She told me 2 days after doing that over and over again, she told my wife, she says, Mom, can we go play scooters? And she said, well, you got to talk to your dad about it. She goes, yeah, well, he says later. And he keeps on saying later, and then later never comes. And I was like, I got to figure out something else to say.
You got to find a new catchphrase.
I can't. And again, it's just scooters right now with all the weather and everything. It hasn't been really a good time for us. But, like, that's a little anecdote where all of a sudden, like a kid is 13, 14, 15 years old trying to find themselves. They need some interpersonal help. They need a connective relationship with a parent, and you ain't there.
And talk to Dad. You'll just tell me to talk to him later.
Yeah,
so.
later.
Yeah, no, we're already at the same place with our oldest, who's only 3, where he's, they have when it's something they want to do, they remember what you told them.
You told me at this time exactly. Yeah. We'll be done like this.
Yeah, you told me last Saturday night at 7 p.m. that
it's like you can't even count.
A week from now, and it's been 7 days. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? So anyway, so they Ernest is captured. We have this beautiful moment in the attic. Everybody goes to sleep, and you see this ominous figure outside, which I think through traditional storytelling, we assume is going to be the CIA agent regretful that they're going to try to use Randy, who was Ernest, as a weapon, and he's not going to be just like disposed of. He's the weapon. And so... But all of a sudden, then they flash to you're with Ernest in his cell. He has a flashback memory that his brother-in-law, who's the real Ernest,
back in Oklahoma,
had hit him in the head with a statue and stole his kid. So he realizes he's got to get out and figure out what to do
again.
next.
Another mystery solved that comes out of nowhere.
Yes, just complete
it just falls into our lap. Yeah. Very at the end. There's not really much
Very
prime for this.
Yes, poor writing. And so, but then also the CIA agent is there with him. So you're like, well, if she's here, who's that outside the window? And Kevin goes downstairs to get a sip of, or he hears something outside. He goes downstairs and here's real Ernest, the guy, the murderer, in his kitchen for no reason with a gun.
Real Ernest says, I know the reason you found me wasn't to talk to me about Randy. It's because you knew it was me. You knew I did it. You knew me and my wife abducted that little girl. Like, he wasn't a deadbeat dad. We wanted the baby for our own. And you're gonna tell everybody. So instead of you telling everybody, I'm just gonna murder you and your whole family.
Yeah, which
it's just whoa, that escalated really quickly.
I mean, you could have just stayed in your house and just denied anything that anybody said if anything came out.
Someone should have done like a gas leak or something, like just like the silent killer. Not you can't pull a gun on a 14-year-old kid and walk away from that.
So you have the struggle. Obviously, the CIA agent lets Ghost Ernest out. He comes
after years of her life trying to find a ghost.
To capture
she gets a ghost, and within 15 minutes of him being in the facility, she's like, this is inhumane. Yeah. Ghost rights are human rights. I saw the TikTok. I got to let you go.
She was moved, and so she lets Ernest out, and obviously last moment he saves the day, and then you get another moment that's kind of beautiful at the end with Ernest and his daughter, his actual daughter. She's a grown up now in her
like 50s.
Who she always knew something was off with that relationship, so she'd kind of disappeared on the aunt and uncle. And so then you get to see, Ernest dissipate into the nether realm, wherever he ends up. And so
the nether, is that like hell?
The nether,
he just disappeared to hell.
I'm not saying if you're a ghost though, you're probably not going to heaven. And so Brett, what is your overall thought on the movie? Like, how do you leave this movie feeling when the credits start to roll?
So I really have two thoughts. So first is that one, this movie feels like it wanted to be Beetlejuice, which they actually reference in the movie when Anthony Mackie is like trying to speak with authority to the ghost. Beetlejuice.
And the kids are like, what are you talking about?
It tries to be Beetlejuice with like a mix of Matilda from the 90s. Like those two movies feel like really big influences, but it doesn't achieve the quality or greatness of either.
So I felt like my initial reference point watching it was Casper the Friendly Ghost, just because as a kid I remember growing up watching that, and I remember thinking they could have really kind of gone more of a Casper route and just kind of kept this all in the family, and that was just my initial thought. But I do like that Matilda.
Well, I truly think, like, I watched Matilda, but I'm not afraid to admit that was a banger.
Oh yeah,
that movie went hard.
I mean, if you didn't watch Matilda a ton of times as a kid, you didn't have a childhood.
It's great, and it's got a little more. It's still a kids movie, but it's got a lot of adult themes with like the bullying, the parents' neglect, and like you feel that the teaching. It's a really good movie. I can't say how how I feel about it now. I haven't watched
Well,
it
you
lately.
got Danny DeVito is Anthony Mackie, except for like the extreme version of
Mhm.
like, what if he completely
It's a
sold
bit of a
himself?
caricature of those people, but it's fun and it's enjoyable. Beetlejuice is like very niche with like the art side, and so there were parts this movie started out. I was like, oh, this is gonna be like paranormal. It's gonna get into some of the niche, very creative stuff, and it didn't. And so, when I think about like, hey, the second point of what did you walk away from this film thinking of, I was a little bit disappointed. And then I thought about it. You know me, I'm an eternal optimist. Maybe some of the disappointment that I have was meant to be a launch point for discussion.
Of course,
Because
yeah.
if you're watching this movie and you're 15 years old, you're 10 years old, whatever, maybe you're a parent that has kids. This movie isn't what I would say is like family safe, because they start talking
No,
about
I would not watch-
strippers
yeah, I
and
would not watch this
boners
as a
and
little kid.
flicking people off. Like it's not like inappropriate in my opinion, but like I don't want to have that conversation with an 8-year-old. Like, hey, what's a
No.
boner? Or,
Yeah, no.
what's a stripper? What hand gesture is this? So, but if I have like a 12-year-old, a 13-year-old, like a kid like in school, they're gonna
Preteen, teen,
engage with this kind of
teenage, yeah.
stuff. All of a sudden, here's a launch point for conversation. I did have personal offense with the father narrative. I really think that could have been driven home. Eliminate Tignataro. Eliminate Tignataro's character. Eliminate the CIA government storyline, and send Dad with Kevin on this journey.
father-son adventure.
Then there's a link to the original Ernest wanting to kill the dad. That makes way more sense than wanting to kill a 13, 14-year-old boy.
Yeah, it didn't really.
That just doesn't
register.
sit well. But like you said, at the very end, we get this absolutely beautiful moment from an actor that has not said a single word the entire time. He's reunited with his daughter, and I just can't help but think, like, as a father, I walk away from this movie saying, there is so much distracting me in this world from raising my kids. Whether it's trying to make money to provide for them, or my brother-in-law trying to kill me to take away my kid. These are the two things.
And if
And
you
they-
know his brother-in-laws, it's very possible that could happen.
My brother-in-law's name is Frank.
Frank?
Oh, no.
Frank, we're watching you.
No, Frank is cool. Frank is cool. Gotta watch out for Tyler.
Okay.
That's real. And Jacob's a lot bigger than me, so they could both probably kill me.
I would
Frank
watch out
is-
for Tyler.
To be fair,
but-
Frank is a lot bigger than me too.
Yes. Well, I would watch out for Tyler, but my neck would start to hurt from looking down so much. 'cause
Which
it's, so
it's
tiny.
weird because I'm 6'5",
Yes.
so for them to be
Yes.
that much bigger than me is pretty impressive. But at the end of this movie, I just want everything to be the moments that the fathers had with their kids, because when Anthony Mackie speaks to Kevin, he's honest, he's vulnerable, that's real. And when Randy, the ghost Ernest, is reunited with his daughter at the very end, he doesn't say a word. She doesn't say a word, really. She just says, Daddy.
That's
And
all that's
it's,
needed.
It's real. And it's a moment that it pays off, but I almost don't want it to work, because you don't deserve
Yeah,
to
you
get
don't
this
deserve it with
payoff.
your middle
You did not
acts.
set this up right. That payoff, like this daughter that we didn't know about, like, we need more context. We need more context between the father-son relationship, the father-daughter relationship. There's so much opportunity. So again, I tend to think eternal optimist here. That's a discussion point. It's why we have this show. We can talk about this, and I wish it was better, but I don't think it delivers. So I guess my question to you would be then, as you start thinking about your takeaways, what are your takeaways, and how would you grade this movie?
So my takeaways are the clear struggle that we have as we age as parents to continue to provide stability for our kids, as well
Kids
as
need stability, you sure?
kids need stability.
Okay.
It's one of the key
gotta work on
factors
that.
in raising your kids in a good way. Is they crave that stable environment. So much of the world is chaotic, and life is chaotic. Having stable a stable family environment at home, I think, makes all the difference in the world for these kids. And so that relationship with Anthony Mackie and his son, that struggle, they really lose you with that in the middle of the movie. And like you said, that disjointedness makes the ending conversation in the attic and the ending between Frank and his daughter feel like it pays off a little bit less, which I think kind of
not to mention it feels like a bait and switch that we have a movie with Anthony Mackie and David Harbour and they don't really have any significant interaction or scenes together.
Yeah, I think it's a poor use of your talent overall. So we're going to rate this movie out of how many minivans. We would give this out of 10. And so my personal opinion is that this is a 5 out of 10 minivan. What that means to me is that the movie is watchable. I think if you have a teenager or you just really want to watch a ghost movie, you can watch it. But in a year from now, I don't think anybody's going to be talking about We Have a Ghost. I don't think that people are going to be clamoring to come back and rewatch this film unless you just really, really, really love ghost movies.
I'm surprised. I actually rated this a little higher than you did.
Oh, wow.
I rated this 6 out of 10 vans.
Oh, 6 out of 10 minivans.
6 out of 10 vans. I, like you, I probably will never rewatch this movie.
No.
Personally. But I do believe that there will be people that just
hate
love
themselves.
This. This will be their B movie, and they will just watch it over and over and over again, like a Matilda, like a Beetlejuice. I think there will be a cult following, and those people will not have the problems with some of the plot points. Like, they don't take offense to the CIA government storyline. They don't take offense to the fact that, like, Stifler's mom, Jennifer Coolidge, shows up in this movie for like 3 minutes and like, show me more of that. That's hilarious.
Yeah, she's in the trailer, so you
goofy,
think she has more of a part.
Medium psychic person, like, show me more of that. They're just gonna be along for the ride. And when you watch, like, if I watch Matilda today as a kid, as an adult, as a
all right, Peter
functioning
Pan.
adult,
Peter Pan over here.
I'm not really an adult. I just play one on TV. But if I watch that today, I'd probably have more misgivings with like the plot because I'm an adult. I expect more from it. There's going to be an audience that watches this movie.
Yeah, I think if you're a
and
teenager,
really enjoys it.
Yeah.
But not just teenagers. I think there's plenty of people that they just watch a movie and they're like, hey, let's just go on an adventure. Let's just have fun. Let's not think about some of the movies I've loved the most recently have not been these very deep, introspective thrillers. They have been just like, hey, let's just go on a journey. And we did. We got to see a ghost movie that wasn't super scary. It was funny. There's some scary moments where like they're priming you with like mnemonic devices or movie tropes, and then we're tricked very quickly. Oh, this is funny. This is campy. Yeah. And I think there's plenty of people that want that. So I think this is a good step in the right direction for a Netflix film. But again, for me, I will probably never watch this movie again. It's all about the expectations that you go in with, and not everybody goes in looking to have a conversation about a movie.
No.
We do. We love it. I love to look at stories not as an escape from life, but as an anecdote for them. I don't need to escape. My life is great. I'm 6'5". I'm huge, super cool, super rich.
Married, you got a minivan.
I drive a minivan, and I choose to do that.
You've beaten all the Halos.
Like I'm living the dream. But when I watch these movies, I think of life. I think of what it means, and I think that this movie, obviously where I am in my life personally, this really resonates, and it's a good like message. There's so many little themes that are sprinkled throughout, and unlike Ant-Man, where I felt like there was a very clear message, this has so many like throughout, and they're all just kind of like underdeveloped. They're just seeds that have been thrown into a field, and they're starting to sprout, but nothing really gets cultivated or developed much. So for me, that's why I feel like it's a 6 out of 10 because of like the potential. But if someone said to me this is a 3 out of 10, I wouldn't blame them. But I wouldn't be shocked. There's somebody out there like this was a 9 for me. I loved it.
When you're saying that, I think about, we used to have movie nights with my parents when I was a kid, a teenager, and so it would be me and my younger brother and my younger sister, who is a couple years younger than us, I think this would have been kind of one of the perfect like movie Saturdays for us to watch and kind of have fun. And I don't think that like my parents or my little sister would have like thought too much about it afterwards. It would have just been a movie that we all enjoyed together. Yep. But for us, I do think that it does have some issues as far as if you're going to put this up against any movie you've seen before, it just isn't going to hold up very well.
No, that's true. That's going to do it for this episode of the Minivan Movie Club.
Thanks for joining us.
We'll see you next time.